Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a really significant figure and period in Andhra Pradesh. We're sort of using this date, September 2nd, 2025, as a moment to reflect on, well, 30 years of leadership and transformation under Nara Chandrababu Naidu.
Exactly. And this isn't just about listing achievements, It's more a deep dive into how consistent vision and some pretty innovative thinking can really tackle deep-seated regional problems and ultimately create opportunities for millions.
Right. We want to unpack how one leader's approach over decades really shaped a whole region's destiny. The aim is to make these big, sometimes complex changes feel accessible, whether you're thinking about it from a village perspective or from, say, a tech hub.
Think of it as understanding the mechanics of turning vision into reality on a massive scale.
Okay, so let's start at the roots. Where did this all begin for Nara Chandrababu Naidu, or CBN?
Well, his origins are quite grounded. He comes from a farming family in Chittor district, born back in 1950. So he grew up experiencing firsthand the kind of challenges rural life throws at you. Unreliable monsoons, maybe limited schooling options, the daily grind.
And you think those early experiences, that direct understanding of rural hardship, really fueled his push into public service?
I think it fundamentally shaped his perspective, absolutely. It gave him a kind of built-in empathy. But it wasn't just empathy. He also pursued higher education, getting a master's in economics. That gave him the analytical tools, the framework, to actually tackle these complex societal issues systematically.
So the empathy from experience plus the economic toolkit, how did that translate into his early political moves?
He started out in the 70s with the Indian National Congress, actually, but the key alignment came later with the Telugu Desam Party, the TDP. That was founded by his father-in-law, the famous N.T. Ramarao.
Ah, right, the NTR connection.
Yes, and once he joined the TDP, his rise was pretty swift. He became an MLA at just 28.
28. He's young.
Very. And by 30, he already held a ministerial portfolio running a significant state department. So a fast trajectory.
Which leads us to that pivotal moment. September 1st, 1995. He becomes chief minister of what was then the undivided Andhra Pradesh. He's 45. That day in Hyderabad, it really kicked off a whole new era, didn't it?
It really did. It marked the beginning of a period defined by, well, pretty bold reforms and a focus on governance innovation. But you have to understand the context he stepped into.
Okay, paint us that picture. What was Andhra Pradesh like in 1995 when he took charge?
It was facing some huge hurdles. Poverty was rampant. Infrastructure, roads, power, irrigation was seriously lacking. And there was significant social unrest simmering beneath the surface, a really daunting situation.
What kind of unrest are we talking about? What were the big flashpoints?
You had several deep-seated conflicts. Factional violence was a major problem, especially in regions like Rayalaseema. These weren't just political disputes. They were often long-standing family rivalries escalating into, well, deadly cycles that stifled any kind of peace or progress. Then, in Hyderabad, you had underlying communal tensions that would sometimes flare up into clashes. And overshadowing parts of the state, particularly rural areas, was Naxalism, a leftist insurgency using violence and extortion, hindering development.
Wow, so factionalism, communal issues, and active insurgency, plus the economic and infrastructure deficits. That's a lot.
It absolutely is. Many might have been overwhelmed. But Naidu came in with a specific philosophy. He often talked about, and still does, the importance of studying what worked in the past, learning from it, but then adapting it, tweaking it for current needs with innovative thinking.
That adaptability seems key. He mentioned that again recently, right? On that 30-year reflection point, September 2nd, 2025.
Yes, he reiterated that idea that better results can be achieved through determination and innovative thinking. He stressed that you can't just rely on old methods, you need fresh ideas.
So let's see that innovation in action. The power sector, that was a huge issue back then, wasn't it? Chronic shortages.
Oh, massive. It crippled everything. Industries couldn't run reliably, farmers struggled to irrigate their fields, even daily life was constantly disrupted. His government tackled this head-on with major reforms in the late 90s.
What did those reforms involve? Privatization?
Partly, yes. It involved unbundling the state electricity board, separating generation, transmission, distribution. Parts of the sector, particularly generation and distribution in some urban areas, were open to private investment to bring in efficiency and capital. But critically, they made sure to maintain essential subsidies for the poor and for agriculture. It wasn't just wholesale privatization.
So a structured approach. And the result?
Quite dramatic, actually. They saw something like a 90% growth in electricity supply over time. The state became power self-sufficient, and it really set a model that other states looked at. It was like finally getting a reliable light source after years of flickering power.
That's a tangible impact.
Yeah.
What about regional development? You mentioned Rangareddy district earlier. It
Yeah.
went from being labeled backward to, well, something quite different.
Yeah, the Rangareddy story is remarkable. It used to be considered one of the most underdeveloped districts, maybe only had about 10 high schools initially.
Miss 10.
Just 10. But under his administration, there was a really focused push. They facilitated land acquisition, sped up approvals, offered significant incentives specifically for educational institutions. The result was an explosion. 240 engineering colleges set up shop there.
240. That's unbelievable growth.
It is. It attracted students and faculty from all over India, and that concentration of talent and investment transformed Rangareddy from this, sleepy, underdeveloped area into the wealthiest district in the state. It shows how strategic investment in education and the right infrastructure can completely change a region's fortunes.
Let's shift to Hyderabad and the IP boom. That's probably what many people associate with his early tenure. How did that happen? The internet was still pretty new then.
It was visionary, no doubt. In the late 90s, the idea of Hyderabad as a global IT hub seemed ambitious, let's say. You had industrialists who were hesitant. They looked at the outskirts, where land was available, and saw, well, not much infrastructure.
So how did they convince them?
The government basically had to build it first. His team really rolled up their sleeves, developing dedicated roads, ensuring reliable power lines, setting up the communication backbone. They created the ecosystem to lure the investment.
They built it and they came.
Pretty much. HITEC City was the flagship project, inaugurated in 1998. And soon you had giants like Microsoft setting up their first development center outside the U.S. there, then Google, and many others followed. It created hundreds of thousands of jobs and completely changed Hyderabad's image globally.
But the vision wasn't just software, was it? He looked beyond IT.
Correct. He realized relying only on IT could be risky. So diversification was key. That led to the push for biotechnology. Genome Valley was established in 1999, again using a public-private partnership model.
How did that work, the partnership?
Right. The state essentially provided the seed infrastructure, incubator facilities, maybe some initial research grants. Private companies brought in the specialized R&D, the investment, the commercialization focus. It created this cluster for life sciences, pharmaceuticals, vaccines, agricultural biotech. Its impact, like new medicines or better crops, spread way beyond just Andhra Pradesh.
And then there were other diversification efforts, too.
Yes, things like the HITEC Exhibition Center, built around 2003. It became one of the largest convention centers in the country. That aimed to boost trade, tourism, e-meetings, incentives, conferences, exhibitions. It was all part of a broader strategy to build a more resilient, multifaceted economy, not just dependent on agriculture or even just IT.
Okay, so we've talked economics and infrastructure. But what about those deep social divisions you mentioned earlier? The factionalism, the communal tensions, Naxalism. How were those tackled?
That required a different, more nuanced approach. For factionalism in Rayalaseema, it was a combination platter. Strict law enforcement against violence, yes, but also proactive community programs fostering dialogue, offering economic incentives to try and break those historical cycles of conflict, give people an alternative path.
And in Hyderabad, with the communal tensions.
Similar mix. Enhanced policing and security measures during sensitive times, but also ongoing interfaith initiatives, promoting dialogue and understanding between communities to build social cohesion.
What about Naxalism? That seems like a particularly tough one, combining ideology with violence.
Extremely tough. The strategy there was also two-pronged. Security operations were necessary to counter the violence and maintain order, but alongside that, the administration pushed significant development packages into the affected remote rural areas. The idea was to address the root causes: poverty, lack of opportunity that might make people susceptible to the Naxalite narrative, win hearts and minds through progress, not just force.
That sounds like a long-term game.
It absolutely is, and it wasn't without risk. Naidu himself survived an assassination attempt by Naxalites in 2003. That really highlighted the dangers, but it seemed to strengthen his resolve to pursue that dual path of security and development.
Another major focus seems to have been women's empowerment, especially with the DWCRA groups. What exactly were they and how did they work?
DWCRA development of women and children in rural areas. These were essentially self-help groups at the village level. They were hugely impactful. The mechanism was often about microfinance, helping women pool their small savings and then access larger, often interest-free loans, linking them eventually to formal banks too.
So giving them financial independence.
Precisely. But it wasn't just loans. They also provided skills training, tailoring, handicrafts, animal husbandry, you name it, and helped them access markets for their products. It wasn't a handout. It was about building self-reliance, empowering women economically. You hear so many stories of women starting small businesses, lifting their families out of poverty through these groups.
That's grassroots empowerment.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned broader infrastructure like airports and telecom.
Yes, the push for developing airports across the state improved connectivity dramatically, which had knock-on effects for business and tourism. And the telecom reforms enacted during his earlier tenures really laid some crucial groundwork for India's whole digital revolution, improving mobile access, expanding broadband. These things seem standard now, but back then they were foundational shifts.
Okay, let's jump forward to the present day, or very near present. After some time out of office, Naidu had a major comeback in the 2024 state elections.
A very significant comeback. The TDP, leading a coalition, won a large majority, 135 seats. So on June 12, 2024, he was sworn in as chief minister for the fourth time. It shows remarkable political longevity and enduring appeal.
And his son, Nara, is now also prominent in the government.
Yes, Nara is now the Minister for IT and Human Resource Development, among other portfolios. It signals a continuity of that focus on technology, youth, and skills development within the administration.
So that brings us back to the 30-year milestone, September 2nd, 2025. How was that marked?
There was quite a bit of public acknowledgement. Supporters celebrated. You saw trends on social media like #30 years since CBM became CM. Nara himself put out a message reflecting on it, calling his father's first oath the dawn of an era, and pointing to those pioneering projects like HITEC City, Genome Valley, and also the planned capital, Amaravati.
Ah, yes, Amaravati. That project's had a bit of a stop-start history, hasn't it?
It has. It was conceived as this ultra-modern, sustainable greenfield capital city. Construction started during his previous term, but was largely halted by the subsequent government. Now, with his return, its revival is back on the agenda. It represents that long-term, perhaps ambitious urban vision.
It ties back to that philosophy you mentioned, adapting past ideas. He seems to keep emphasizing that need for reform and fresh thinking.
Exactly. He's been quoted saying things like, study past successful policies and adapt them, but also warning, there will be no progress if we distance ourselves from reforms. It underlines this constant theme of looking forward, iterating, not getting stuck.
So, bringing this all together, why does this 3-decade story matter to, the average person listening today?
Yeah.
How does it connect?
Well, I think it connects very directly. These big policy decisions and infrastructure projects, they translate into tangible realities. We're talking about jobs created, whether in IT, biotech, or construction. We're talking about better roads, making travel easier, reliable power keeping lights on, and businesses running safer communities because of efforts to tackle violence.
Right.
Think about that farmer in Rayalaseema potentially having safer, easier access to markets, or the student in Rangareddy having world-class engineering colleges nearby, or the woman in a rural village finding economic independence through a DWCRA group. It's about how these macro changes impact micro lives.
And looking forward now, with this new term, what's the state envision?
The focus seems to be on Vision 2029, aiming to make Andhra Pradesh a premier investment destination again, but with a strong emphasis on inclusive growth, ensuring the benefits reach across society. You see practical steps like the Palipanduga program announced recently a significant investment, something like 4,500 crore, for development works in thousands of villages, done in collaboration with coalition partners like Deputy CM Pawan Kalyan to ensure it reaches the grassroots.
So reflecting on this whole journey, this deep dive, what are the key takeaways?
For me, it underscores that leadership, especially over such a long period, involves making some really tough, sometimes unpopular choices, but with a clear long-term goal. It's about navigating immense initial challenges, like in 1995, and then adapting to new ones. That blend of determined implementation and consistent innovation seems to be the defining characteristic. Like that social media comment said, it's seen by supporters as a legacy of vision, innovation, and people-first governance.
It's definitely a compelling narrative of transformation against considerable odds. A story of persistence, maybe?
Persistence and adaptation, I think. It shows how seemingly intractable problems can be tackled, how obstacles can become stepping stones with the right strategy and sustained effort.
Okay, so as Andhra Pradesh continues its path, these lessons from the past 3 decades are certainly relevant. And that leaves us with a thought for you, our listeners. Thinking about that principle, Naidu often emphasizes studying past successes, but tweaking them, adapting them with innovative thinking for today's needs. How might that apply in your own world, whether it's your community, your workplace, or even a personal challenge? Is there a stubborn obstacle you're facing that could benefit from that kind of approach? A fresh mix of determination and truly innovative thinking? Something to mull over.